Hello and welcome to, I'm going to call it week 5. I think it's actually week 4. I don't know if anybody noticed, but last week I got a little confused. I did Genesis 1:4 in Hebrew on Friday, a week ago Friday, and then I did Genesis 1:5 in Hebrew on Monday. And so I'm just going to go ahead, and the new cycle, which actually works better, I like it better, is on Monday I'm going to do the Hebrew. And then if you're my patron, on Wednesday, I'll do the Septuagint of Genesis 1:5. And then on Friday, I'll do the Latin Vulgate of Genesis 1:5. And then I've also started doing a little Spanish on Saturdays in Matthew. And that's to help me with my Spanish. I'm getting some help because my pronunciation was wrong on a few things. This past Saturday, I started. Anyway, but this is Hebrew Monday. And so Genesis 1:5, if you have some facility with Hebrew, see if you can translate Genesis 1:5. And here's my translation. And, that's the Vav, God called to the light day, and to the darkness he called night. And it was evening, and it was morning, day 1. Okay. Great verse. I mean, I love Genesis 1 in Hebrew. Hebrew is such a poetic language. I love it. I'm not as good at it as Greek, but I've always said that Hebrew is more intuitive. So Greek is more for the mathematical, scientific mind, I think. If you're good with algebra, Greek is your language. If you're good with geometry, maybe Hebrew is your language. Again, this is just a hypothesis. It may not be true. Okay, Vayikra Elohim Laor. Vayikra Elohim Laor Yom Velakoshek Kara Laila Vayehi Erev Vayehi Voker Yom Echad. Okay, my attempt to read some Hebrew. Well, let's look at the translation in a little bit more detail. So Vayikra and called Elohim, God. Love these words for God. Elohim is a generic word for God. So it's the category God, as opposed to Yahweh is his name, right? Yahweh is the name of God. Elohim is the word for God. So this could refer to other gods. It's actually plural, as we've said before. Although when we're talking about the God, Yahweh, we treat this plural as if it's singular. So it's God, and God called. To Or, he called to the Or, he called to the light. Day, he called to the light. Yom, and so this is some people have said, how can this be light without a sun or moon? Because the sun and moon come on day 4. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what was going on in the mind of the author of Genesis, whoever you think that is, Moses, or whoever you would think it might be. I think obviously there is a difference in the author's mind between the sun and light. It's interesting. Now, again, this is not at all what was in the mind of the author. This is because this is the last, 50 years or so. Actually, the 1960s is when this was discovered. There's this thing called cosmic background radiation. No matter where you point a radio telescope, you can hear the traces of basically a huge explosion. Now, it's not the creation explosion. It is the explosion of light all over the universe. If I remember, and now again, I don't necessarily put a stake in any particular scientific claim, but according to scientists, as of 4:05 on the 27th of October, I think it was about 380,000 years into the creation, things cooled down enough for photons that had been intermixed in the soup of quarks and stuff to shoot out everywhere around the universe. There was an explosion of light. Again, I am not saying that this is what the author of Genesis meant, although God may have been winking at Gabriel, when it happened. But there was this explosion of photons all over the universe, several 100,000 years, according to current scholars, scientists, cosmologists. an explosion of light. Anyway, I think that's a fun parallel to Genesis 1:3. But anyway, and God called to the light day, Yom, and to the darkness he called Lila, which is the word for night. So if you know somebody named Lila, their name is night. Vayehi erev, and it was evening. Vayehi voker, Yom echad, day one. Notice that evening comes first because this is the way the Hebrew day is structured. The Hebrew day begins at sundown, and then it goes till sundown the next day. So evening comes before morning, which makes sense in terms of creation, right? Because darkness comes in creation before light in creation. So fascinating stuff. What else do I want to say about this before I go any further? La means two. This is a prefix. It's a preposition. La means two. La here, so this is a lamed. La or, la koshik, to light, to darkness. Now there's a the hiding in there. This kamatz is a the, and this patak is a the. Kind of these points underneath, these vowels underneath, they weren't there originally. They were added by the Masoretes in the 900s after Christ to help with the reading. But normally the would be a hey, a patak, and a doubling of the next letter. Except when there's a preposition, the hey is replaced. So the hey goes away because the lamed is replacing it. And then these two letters, aleph and chet, they don't do doubling. And so with the aleph, we get what's called compensatory lengthening. So instead of patak doubling, we get a long patak. A patak is a short a. A kamatz is a long a. And so we get a long a. It's like it shot the doubling dagesh into the aleph and it bounced off and lengthened the kamatz. Okay, anyway, that's the way I think of it. So to the light. And then with chet, we get what's called virtual doubling. It tries to put a dagesh in there and it falls in the hole and never is seen again. So, but it doesn't do compensatory lengthening with chet or hey. Ayin and aleph do compensatory lengthening. And that's all we have to say that there was a the here. Those two little vowel remnants underneath. Okay, what else do I want to say here? This is called a makaf. It's like a dash. That holum should be over the vav. Let me just fix that real quick so you see it right at least once. There, I fixed it several places. See, the holum should be right over the vav. I fixed it also with this yom here, and then or it should be right over the vav. So I think I've fixed it now on all of these slides. Okay, it's interesting. It doesn't say the first day. It says day one. I like that. The Greek philosopher, the Jewish thinker Philo made a big deal out of that. Okay, grammar. Oh, I don't have this on. I don't have this on the secrecy unfolding, and now I do. Okay, so the grammar of this line, a lot of it is pretty straightforward. So Elohim, it's masculine, absolute, plural, absolute. Although we conceive of it as singular because it takes a singular verb because it's talking about the God. I talked about the preposition, the word the. This is vav, it means and. Again, preposition to. That patak is short a is the. Actually, we would transliterate it as just an a. And then the kamatz we would transliterate as an a with a long mark over it, a macron, a long. And then, okay, so this is all pretty normal. Okay, so let's parse this verb. We have vav patak doubling, which tells me it's a preterite. It's a past tense. We used to call it a converted imperfect. And I still call it that. This is the basic G or call, QAL stem. G converted imperfect. It's third masculine singular. This is third masculine singular also from kara, to call. So we might say, I don't know, a preterite is a simple past tense. So this is a simple, and he called. It's not, the imperfect normally means incomplete, but not in this case. This has a different history, this particular form. So it is a simple past tense. And God called to the light, Yom, and to the darkness, he called Lila. Okay. And so next, this is Vav Patak, and it would normally be doubling, Vav Patak, and it would normally be doubling. There's a weird rule. I don't know why, but there's a weird rule that if there is a Shavah under the performative that would have doubled, the doubling goes away. I don't know why, but that's so. There's no dagish here, a doubling. There's no doubling of the yod, no doubling dagish. It's called dot, dot like that. It's not there because of the shavah underneath it, but it's still a converted imperfect. And this is so the vav is a prefix. Well, it's a conjunction really. Yeah, I'll call it a prefix, but it's a conjunction that means and. The yod is called a performative because it's part of the actual verb. It's an addition to the verb, yes, but it's considered as part of the verb, whereas a prefix is actually not part of the verb. It's a different meaning bit. It's a different morpheme. Well, that's not the way to put it. Anyway, so this yod tells me that it's an imperfect. This yod tells me that it's third masculine singular. So it is also call or G, converted imperfect third masculine singular from haya. And as I said in a previous video, the hey goes away when it's in this particular form. Third hays go away a lot. They're very shy, third hays. Okay. So it means and it was. What was? Evening. And evening was, and erev was. Okay. When the bait, by the way, when it doesn't have a dot in it, there are two. I mean, Hebrew's crazy. There are two different kinds of dots. There's the doubling dot, the doubling dagish, and the dot that says pronounce this b. So if that's called a hardening dagish because it hardens the sound. And there are only certain letters. We call them the bump letters. There are only certain letters that do that kind of hardening sound. And bait is one of it. It's the B in bump. And so it's not here. So that's erev. And it's v, erev, instead of ereb. Same thing here. This is voker, not boker, because it doesn't have the dot in it. It doesn't have the dagish in it. Vayehi erev. And evening was vayehi voker. And morning was yom echad, day one. By the way, if you want to say good morning in modern Hebrew, you say boker tov, morning good. Tov means good. Okay, so we're left with the letters. Let me go ahead and tell you the letters. Vav, Yod, Kof, Resh, Aleph, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem, final Mem. Lem, Aleph, Vav, Resh, Yod, Vav, Mem. Vav, Lamed, Chet, Sheen, final Kaf. So a Kaf in the middle and a Kaf at the end look differently. A Kaf at the end. A Kaf in the middle, well, I don't see one here. This is a Kaf at the end. It's a little bit longer. It's like you hold it down for the final frontier. Kaf. Kof. Kof is like a Q. Kaf is like a K. Not really, but let's go with it for now. Resh, Aleph, Lamed, Yod, Lamed, Hey. Vav, Yod, Hey, Yod. Ayin, Resh, Vav. I mean bait. Vav, Yod, Hey, Vav. Bait, Kof, Resh. Yod, Vav, Mem. Aleph, Chet, Dalet. Okay, so this has been Genesis 1:3 in Hebrew. Vayikra Elohim laor Yom, Valakoshek kara Laila, Vayehi Erev, Vayehi Voker, Yom Echad. See you next week.